Holy cow. Made it. Finally. Jeez Louise. Okay. So sorry about the lateness of this one, guys. Holy cow. This is the first time that I am this late. I think I've only ever been late by a minute. I knew I was going to be late this time. I knew it was going to come out late because I went to a protest today. A protest that I help Isabella Gamp with POOF, Protecting ODSP funding. Hi, Alex. I love you too, bud. Good to see you. Good to see you. Protest went very well. Went very, very well. About the same level of turnout that we've been getting. I just had to help shut down the protest and shut down the get everything cleaned up and organized, right? And then it takes a little bit of time to get home. And then of course the TTC on the way home was just a disaster the entire time, just like everything that could go wrong did, right? And I knew I was going to be late, but I didn't think I was going to be this late. So my apologies. It's I'm very sorry for being this late. And protest went very well. Isabella, of course, was like in the hospital yesterday, so a real testament to her determination and willingness to get out there and do that. Lots of really good things happened in this particular round of protest. We got lots of good, lots of people paying attention, lots of people stopping and watching us. Which I think is a really, really good sign. We relocated from Dundas to college, which made it so that I think when we were at Dundas, we kind of became we became just part of the spectacle. The Dundas itself is like a big spectacle. And like it's like Times Square, there's the big billboards, and then there's like the fucking crazy fake Christians peddling their shit. There's always like some magician doing some shit and all this. So there's always like lots of stuff going on at Yonge and Dundas. And so it kind of did become that we would be there and we just kind of became part of that, right? Hey Loaf, how you doing, bud? And when we moved it to college instead and shut the street down at college, we were the spectacle. Like we were not part of the spectacle, we were the spectacle. And I think that is a good observation and a good shift. We also had the real benefit that the guy who's been providing our sound for us has been renting it, and now he came with his own sound equipment, and steadily he's going to get an arrangement where it's like going to be real slick. He's going to be able to just show up and like basically hit play, and we'll be off to the races. And the police were very accommodating. That's always a big win when you go in and you start doing what you're doing, and the police actually work with you and help you out. There's been one police officer in particular. I don't know his last name, but it's Rob, and he's been closely working with Isabella, and he came up to me because Isabella was talking, and he knows what's been going on with Isabella, and he said to me like, "Hey, Isabella should not be talking," and I just looked at him like, "You try to stop her, bud. Like, you go over there, you stop her," right? And the reality is, and I said this to him, I said as much, right? Like, people like Isabella are not going to go out quietly, like they're going to go down fighting. And someone like Isabella is going to go down, right? Like it's in the cards for all of us, right? It's in the cards for all of us. For the disabled more so than the rest of us. It's observable. You can see it. No sense bullshitting. And someone like Isabella is not going to go out quietly. She's not going to limp out, right? Like she's gonna make the Reaper drag her out the door, right? And so to go up to her and be like. And I do. I say to Isabella all the time, I'm like, hey, Isabella, like, you're, maybe you should chill out. And she's just like, I know when I need to chill out. And, I mean, she did have me talk more than I have usually. And I was able to play a couple of my songs live, got some good feedback from 2020 and Antarctica. Both of those songs. I was surprised to see you, dude. I was surprised to see you, POC. I was surprised that you came. I'm so happy that you did, though. I'm so happy that you did. I know we're all going through it, and I could see it on you that you were having a tough time. So it's a testament to your own personal determination that you came, and I really valued that, man. I need to tell you, I really, really did. Like I understand that you were just standing there with the sign, but in that moment at that time, that's exactly what we needed. That's exactly what we needed. And I don't begrudge you at all that you had to go. I understand. I feel like this particular protest went well. Like everything went really well, and it was a really smooth. And on top of all of the things that were really good, there was a group of university kids or college kids out from Niagara College doing a documentary, and so they're as part of their course material, right? They're doing a documentary of Isabella and of what's going on, and they interviewed me and they interviewed Barry and they interviewed Isabella a couple of times, and stuff like that, like just college interviews, like that can really leave a mark. And someone like Isabella really, really deserves to be enshrined. Like really deserves to have a spotlight shined on her. And she should be interviewed on Global News. She should be interviewed like someone like what's his name, The Agenda, right? Steve Paikin, right? She should be getting interviewed by that guy. Like this idea that they never talk to the disabled, right? Like the best you'll get on a show like Steve Paikin or something like this is like a disability advocate, right? But that's not enough. Like the disabled have the power, like they've got the power and they've got the ability to articulate what's happening to them. And someone like Isabella does articulate what's happening to her, and so she's got real strength and she's got real power, right? She sees what's true. She knows the difference between what's true and what's fake, and so she's a very powerful individual, and I'm so happy that she was able to come out today, because I was a bit worried that it was going to be me and Nico who were going to end up running the thing, and I'm down for that, but boy, it was just kind of happening all at once, and I think it would have been okay, and I was able to speak for probably about a half hour, and you guys know me, I can just get to talking, so that wasn't actually that difficult. Funnily enough, it was the songs. It was the first time I ever played those songs live, and I mean playing them in the street, no less, right? To give those songs to the street was a real pleasure, but really a really overwhelming experience. For sure. One that I hope will happen to me soon again. And so the next protest that's coming down the pipe, I heard Isabella say it, and I sent her a message asking if it was true, if that was what her plan was. We're going to go to Doug Ford's house. I hope that's what happens. I've been saying it all along, guys. I've been saying since the beginning, and I have tried to do it myself, right? We need to go to Doug Ford's house. Like, we've got to go to his house, and we've got to surround his house. Like, we need to surround the halls of power. We need to be telling these guys straight to their faces that they suck, because they do. Right, someone like Doug Ford sucks worse than anybody has ever sucked in Ontario. Right, like the only premier who might do worse, it would be Mike Harris, and Mike Harris literally is just the same as Doug Ford. Like they enact the same policies, they enact the same thing. My partner Flower may have been there. They said they were going anyway. Well, what a beautiful name, Flower. What does Flower look like? Maybe I did. There were people sticking around, taking a look. Beautiful name, Flower. How lovely. Okay. One thing I really want to highlight, and I'm actually going to put this in the chat, because this is a documentary of...
enough, but I think we've done
This is a documentary of the removal of homeless citizens from the parks. Someone has actually done about a 40-minute long documentary in two parts. The first part's 15 minutes, the second part's about a half hour, which is pretty thorough, honestly. Like, it's really good reporting. It's really well done. You know, it's one of those things where, like, you sort of wish that, like, I sort of wish that I had been able to be a documentarian for that sort of thing, but you know how it goes, right? Life takes over, and but somebody has actually gone and done it, and this here is their if you go into the description of the videos, it leads you to here, Toronto Drop-In Network, right? They've got a statement to John Tory about what they think should be, right? We, the undersigned, have worked together to present you a path forward to ensure that the actions taken by the city to remove people from Trinity Bellwoods Park on Tuesday, June 22nd, are never repeated. Using armed police officers on horseback and in riot gear to remove residents who are vulnerable to Toronto's unaffordable housing market due to inadequate social supports has no place in a caring, compassionate society. Instead, we must commit to taking a human rights compliant approach towards housing encampment residents that is co-created with encampment residents. A tent in a park is no one's first option, and we understand that parks cannot be a permanent housing solution. However, the forcible removal of encampment residents must end. This inflicts further trauma on already vulnerable Torontonians and does not address the issues you are trying to solve. This approach just relocates people to another park, underneath a bridge, or worse, back to an unsafe living situation that led them to a tent in the first place. We believe there is a better way. A coalition of Torontonians, including those with lived experience in encampments and shelters, housing advocates and experts, civic leaders, former mayors, and your colleagues on council, have worked together to present the following recommendations we strongly urge you to present at the July 14th meeting of City Council. And of course, here's all their recommendations, promptly ignored, frankly. Hey, Misty, how you doing? Misty, I'm so glad to see you. I was actually thinking about sending you a message. I haven't seen you in quite some time. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing okay. Oh my God, I know, things are so... Everybody, honestly, since the election, everybody seems just tired and depleted and just head back down into the grindstone, right? Like through the election, it was like everybody had permission to put their head up and actually observe the world and talk about it and all that kind of stuff. And then the election ended and everybody just kind of put their head back down and it's back down into the grind, right? So that's life. That's life. Just very tired and sore. Yeah, I suspect. You've been moving around, yeah? You've been moving around? Hopefully that's working out for you, Misty. Hopefully that's all working out. So again, I recommend to everybody, please, hey Bumbleguppy, how you doing, bud? Please take a look at this documentary. Only 33 subscribers on this YouTube channel. This YouTube channel deserves way more than 33 subscribers. These are the only videos they've got, so they're just starting. But this documentation of what happened in the Toronto City Parks, there's footage here I've never seen before. Interviews with people I'd never seen before. So a must watch in my view, and something that I definitely, in fact, now that I'm even talking about it, I should do a save, and I should save it into most important videos. It's not my video, but I'll save it to most important videos anyway. Because this is important work. Documenting what actually happened and documenting what actually has been doing is crucially important. Because as we move forward, one of the tactics of the capitalist death cult is to revise history, is to change the events. Can I post it? Of course I can do that, dude. Actually, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Then everybody can have a nice, good look at it. Here, I'll put it right. Doink. Doink. This is funny. Fraser Institute releases new study. Sorry, my computer's kind of chuggy right now. Fraser Institute releases a new study. Yeah. And Alex, I don't think I saw, I mean, I was very busy, so I didn't see. Oh, you're probably already gone, Alex. Okay, good. Thanks for popping in, bud. So I feel like I'm just like calming down. I feel like I'm just coming down, man. Like I showed up late to this, so I hope all of you guys are doing well. I hope everything's going really, really well. This is going to be so disorganized. I don't have anything prepared. A record number of Americans are quitting their jobs. I mean, what is the difference between an official, like, hold up a sign, say strike, and everyone just quitting, right? What is fundamentally the difference? Because, honestly, what happened, like, the no one wants to work narrative is exactly this revisionist history that I'm talking about, right? The no one wants to work grift that they're grifting on us is 100% just disconnecting the events of what occurred from the pandemic and even before the pandemic to what's going on now. They just build in the assumption that you are wage slaves. You must work for us. Everything has to be focused for the capitalist death cult, right? You can't. If you want to not work, then you're lazy, and if you don't want to work for these death cultists, then there's something wrong with you, and all this kind of stuff. And then the pandemic hits, right? Like, this is what they were saying to us before the pandemic, that we were lazy and shitty and bad people and all this kind of stuff. And then the pandemic hits, and what do? Right? What do instantly? Oh, they lay a bunch of people off, right? They just lay a bunch of people off. And good people, good workers, right? They just say to them, get fucked, right? Us capitalists can't make, money to get a yacht to park our yacht in if we keep you around, so we're just going to lay you off, right? And people like to pretend as though the people they were laying off were just like a part-time cashier. But they laid people like me off, right? I worked for 3 years in an establishment and proved myself in order to climb up the chain of command, right? To go from being a part-time cashier, basically, to being a supervisor, to being the assistant manager. And once you hit that assistant manager position, right, you're in management. It was a full-time job with benefits, right? Like and it wasn't like a rinky-dinky job. I was the assistant manager of a multi-million-dollar store in a very, 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 very in one of the top 3 earning stores in the company, right? Like, I was at the top of the echelon in the store. They laid me off, right? So if they're laying me off, they're laying plenty of people off, right? They're basically flipping the bird and saying, yeah, we need a yacht to park our yacht in and shoot a rocket into space, so get fucked, right? Essentially what they say. And here in Canada, they at least had the foresight to also say, well, we can't just abandon people into the streets, so we'll also create support systems, right? That we will, temporary support systems that we'll get rid of so we can sell you back into this death cult that will actually abandon you the second that it is. So, like, all that work that I put into that company is gone, right? It's gone. Like, sure, I can put on my resume that I was, like, the assistant manager of whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, like, it was a long road for me to get from A to B on that one. And it just gone in a day. Just totally gone. And I can't imagine what it would be for the Americans, right? Like, when you get laid off in America, you basically flip the bird and told to get fucked off. There's a reason there's 600,000 Americans in the streets, right? There's a reason there's 600,000 Americans homeless in the streets. So the idea that the Americans, that the people they left behind, right? So there are people who kept working through this pandemic, right? There are people who just kept working. They didn't receive any benefits. They didn't receive any permanent raises or anything like this. They didn't receive fucking anything. They got little tokens thrown at them, right? And now, more and more, you're starting to see that the strategy of these businesses is now to just burn people out. Just overwork the staff you have, right? Because there's all these unemployed people, right? And the whole, like, people don't want to work narrative, it's such bullshit. There's plenty of stories coming out now where people are putting in resumes and they're getting rejected and they're having these interviews and, like, the interviewers are being very, like, particular and very, like, stick in the muddy about it. And it's like, this wouldn't be the case if they actually needed workers. And because at the end of the day, their strategy is now the Amazon strategy, right? We have this enormous base of unemployed people. Let's just burn these fuckers out. Burn people out and just cycle through the populace. That's what all of these businesses are doing. That's the business model now. And so, yeah, of course a record number of Americans are quitting their jobs. First of all, it was shown to them explicitly how expendable and they were. And all of this, like, we're a family narrative is psychopathic nonsense, right? 1. And then 2, their job is getting way, way harder. Their pay is not increasing. And in fact, the money they're making is declining in value. So more and more people are seeing, like, there is no credibility here. Like, this system is not credible, And it's dangerous to burn out healthcare workers like we're seeing. Yeah, I'm not even talking about the healthcare industry. Like, once this pandemic is over and there is like an official statement of like pandemic over, I will be blown away to see anything other than a full-scale doctor and nurses strike. Like, I don't understand why they're not already doing it. Like, the only thing that is preventing them is basic human decency. And the problem is that we're negotiating with people who have no basic human decency, right? That the sociopaths that run this place do not have basic human decency. And so while the nurses and the doctors are actually being like, okay, well, if we do a strike now, people will die, right? The psychopaths are going, yeah, if they do a strike now, people will die. Like, for real. Like, that's who they are. And so we are going to see like massive strikes from the healthcare industry after this is all said and done. Like, and the strikes are going to be massive. Like, they're going to be massive. And my opinion is that when they go on strike, we should just let them. And my big opinion is many of them are probably going to try to funnel into the halls of power, and we should let them. Right? We should just straight out let them. All any nurse or doctor has to say to me at this point is like, yeah, I worked through the pandemic, and I'll be like, vote. I won't even think about it. Unless they're with the liberals or the conservatives, obviously. But like, yeah, vote. I'm for sure going to vote for these people. And like, if they have something to say, I'm going to listen. Even if they're in the conservative or the liberal party, if they talk, I'm going to listen to them. Because like, these guys are not going to come at me with like some of the fucking bullshit of the past, right? Like, honestly, and more, I get more sympathetic to the anti-vaxxer types and like the people who don't want to cooperate with the society, because I'm just like, yeah, why should they? This society is actively abandoning them, right? The society is actively abandoning us. Like, why should we participate? Why should we cooperate? Give me a reason. What, human decency? Sorry, this society has no human decency. There isn't the most basic human decency in the society. It doesn't exist. Why should we cooperate? Right? So we're seeing again why it's dangerous to have billionaires, right? It's dangerous to have billionaires because when they abandon people, guess what? Those people abandon the society back, right? Yeah, we've gone from ordinary villainy to cartoonish super villainy. And what's so pathetic about this? Oh, hey, Matthias, how you doing, bud? What's so pathetic about this is I read an article just the other day that was saying they're struggling to make a Superman movie. They're struggling to make a Superman movie. How do you make Superman relevant? And I'm like, what in the fuck are you talking about? The reason why they can't make Superman relevant in this day and age is because the very people who are commissioning the writers to write the project are the psychopaths that would be the villains of the piece. Who's Superman's villain? Lex Luthor, right? You're telling me that you can't tell a story where the icon of truth and justice fights back against a psychopathic, bald billionaire? You're genuinely telling me that you cannot put two and two together and tell this story? Then there's no, like, again, there's no credibility left. Like, there's nothing credible left. You literally can't tell the most straightforward story ever told, right? Good versus evil, right? That Superman is like an alien, right? Which you might as well make him an angel, right? He is just the icon of truth and justice. He is just like, here I am. I believe that there are such things as right and wrong, and I am going to attempt to enact right and wrong. Like, I would love to see a Superman that just obliterated the Congress. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you love to see Superman go to these fraudulent politicians like Donald Trump and just fucking eye laser them? I would. Give me an hour and a half of Superman showing up, seeing the system as it is in America today, and just fucking all those guys up. One by one. Show me Superman killing Mitch McConnell. Show me Superman killing Donald Trump. Show me Superman killing Jeff Bezos. Like, this is your fucking movie. I don't understand why you can't put this together. It's so obvious. Like, it's so obvious. Like, Superman goes around and fucks up these evil dickheads, right? Like, all of them. Joe Biden, Obama, Bush, all of them. Like, what's hard? What's hard to do? I feel like I could get drunk and write that in a night. I think it would take me like an hour to write. Like, it would be such an easy script. It'd be such an easy script. Like, but the problem is, right? The problem is that you can't write that script. Why? Because if you put a script in front of the billionaire class that is about the icon of truth and justice in America, Superman, going around and fucking up all of the politicians and all of the billionaires that exist in the society today, they won't fund it. That's what's happening, obviously. Like, you've got to be thick if you think something else is going on, right? Like, they're obviously not. It would be like saying, like, put Inglourious Bastards in front of the Nazis, right? Well, they're not going to fund that, right? They're not going to fund that. They're not going to support that, right? You got to wait like a decade until the whole thing is over, and then some American makes the movie, right? That's what's going on, and like, it just flows into my larger prevailing point, which is that there are no credible institutions remaining, right? That, like, the only reason we're getting any good anti-capitalist stuff these days is because there's something going on in South Korea, right? We got Parasite, and we got Parasite, and now we've got Squid Game, and now and Joker slipped through because I think that they're too stupid to figure out that Joker is an anti-capitalist film, right? I think that these propaganda, like, these guys are too dumb to know. But, like, Superman going around and actually holding politicians accountable, and like, even if he doesn't kill them, even if all he does is, like, show up and wag his finger and actually make them give money to the poor, right? Even that is too much for these guys. These guys are such heavy psychopaths. They're so inundated with, like, high levels psychosis that even if all Superman did was show up to, like, Lex Luthor, Jeff Bezos's house, and say, hey, pay your workers better, and, like, did the glowing eyes and scared him and then had him go, like, okay, I'll do it, right? Even if that's all that happened, that's too much for these guys. That's too much, right? They have no moral conscience. They are vampires. They're ghouls on the highest order, at the highest level. And to see an icon show up and tell them that they are ghouls, no, that's not going to happen. We've gone from ordinary villaining. Yeah, we should start a petition that billionaires need costumes with big collars and a cape. Yeah. Like, for real. Bezos is basically Lex Luthor, right? Like, we all agree on this? Like Bezos is Lex Luthor. Like, look at him. He's and, like, if the shit that Bezos is doing now, Lex Luthor was doing, we would be like, oh yeah, normal. Like, that's the same. Like, Lex Luthor sitting there being like, huh, and they pee in bottles, right? Yeah, believable. Things have changed and the capitalists just refuse to accept it. Their solution is more of the same: be our servants or starve and die. Yeah. But that's always been the arrangement, and it'll be the arrangement until we die, right? They don't care if we die, right? And as you see, you got a record number of Americans quitting their jobs. Well, I think lots of people are choosing that, like, it's better to die free than live in slavery, right? I want an MMORPG where you start as a worker and your goal is to establish communism. Yeah, good agitprop, yeah. Average Joe is kryptonite. Cold War rhetoric is somehow still very ingrained in some people's minds because it's training. Because it's training, right? And also because, like, the wealthiest people are just these old hacks, right? They're just these old, like, political hacks who don't care about anything except their own wealth and prestige. And Cold War rhetoric is useful. It's useful because if you can create Cold War rhetoric for the Russians, then you can create Cold War rhetoric for the Chinese. And you can always just establish this sort of Cold War ethos, right? And just get your people prepared for some kind of war, right? Like, it's useful. The movie They Live showed them as capitalist aliens, which was pretty cool. Yeah. They Live was a pretty cool one. Roddy Piper, man. Roddy Piper. American workers don't have unions or even representatives in government. All they have left is quitting. Yeah. Well, I mean, and surrounding the halls of power. But yeah, like quit your job. Like don't work for these people. They're psychopaths. Like don't work for them. Like I feel like what we are witnessing is also not being reported on honestly, right? That like the media apparatus is going to do everything it can to spin this into some other thing. And ultimately it is going to come back to just like workers are lazy. Yeah, oh, there's too many support systems. Like it's always what it's going to come back to. But we have seen what happens if you attempt to force people back into the workforce by removing their support systems. You just end up with a bunch of homeless people, right? Because the reality is that because these corporations have gone full scale psychopathic, like they're not even trying to pretend anymore, right? All of the ever since the pandemic started, like the pandemic was an enormous shift in the culture instantly, right? Hey Ruth, how you doing? The pandemic was a shift in the culture instantaneously. That the attitudes and the way that people wanted to consume their advertising shifted instantly. And the clumsy, out of touch, detached methods that these corporations attempted to use to continue propagandizing us really revealed how psychotic they actually are, right? Like the whole like we're all in this together thing that they all started to vomit out was like cartoonish. And yeah, jobs are a bad deal, right? Look, I said this on the street today and I'll say it here right now. Your time is worth an infinite amount to you. We don't seem to think of it this way, but 1 minute of your time is worth $100 billion. It's worth more money than can exist in the system, period. That's the truth. And how do I know that's the truth? Because you have been given as a gift by the universe a certain allotment of the time that you must spend, and as you spend it, you never get it back, and you don't know how much you have. And so the idea that you're going to spend the majority of this gift given to you by the universe itself to enrich a psychopath like Jeff Bezos so that he can put a yacht in a yacht, right? And so that he can have a special yacht to like put a helicopter on. Like the idea that that's the arrangement, most people are starting to say like, no, I'd rather just live a life. I'd rather actually experience the world. I'd rather live in the world that I'm with. And then on top of all of this, right? So there's that existential part of it, but there is also the plain reality that people simply can't afford the rent anymore. That the wage that is being paid doesn't pay the rent. And so the option that you're actually giving American workers and Canadian workers now is work your life away as a wage slave and live in poverty, or don't and have your time and live in poverty. Most people value their own time. Most people want their time. That the only reason they're working these jobs in the first place is because of rent and because of food. That's it. And if the job's not going to pay that, then fuck it. Not interested anymore, right? Not interested anymore. And Karl Marx talked about this. Like, welcome to the Canadian commie, right? Karl Marx talked about this. That eventually capitalism destroys itself because it raises the wages too high, and it suppresses the wages, right? And it raises the rent too high so that the wages can't pay the rent. Whole system collapses, right? And we've been in this state for decades, and we've managed to lurch it along because of credit, because of cheap credit. But now the cheap credit system is coming to an end, right? So the whole thing is in free fall collapse. It's already collapsing. And we're seeing the outcomes of this. And my opinion is that the people who are quitting their jobs need to do more than just quit. They need to get out into the streets and they need to surround the halls of power. Yeah, it's not communism until no iPhones. Because the iPhone is like the height of luxury, right? Like, how childish. How childish. I genuinely do feel like when I look at iPhone people, like, I am looking at a cult. Like, Steve Jobs created a cult. Like, that's what he did. He created a cult of personality where he was, like, releasing videos of himself next to, like, Martin Luther King and like, John Lennon and, like, all of these, like, influential, actual, like, genius level people who actually had things to say and were actually important. And he created, like, this marketing scheme where he's got, like, the thing where he's, like, doing this into the camera and he's, like, wearing the, like, all black and he's, like, speaking in the soft tones and we're going to revolutionize the future and all this kind of fucking bullshit. Like, you've got to be a dumb moron to think that Steve Jobs was smart. Steve Jobs was an excellent marketer. That's what Steve Jobs was. Like, Steve Jobs was not a genius, right? He just told everyone else to do shit for him and they did because he was a fucking billionaire. Like... It's the same, like, Steve Jobs, in my view, stands as a testament to how easy it is to make a cult, right? Like, if I actually did want to, like, take the crazy right turn on this stream and actually show up with, like, the bread hat and start making a little kooky bread cult, I know I could. Like, I know I could. That this would become a bread cult. For sure. For sure. And I actually think I would be more successful. I think that the channel would grow faster if I was like a kooky little bread cult, right? Because people love cults. Obviously they do. Just take a look at iPhones. The boomers didn't grow up with socialists demanding FDR do right. They grew up with McCarthyism, yeah? They fight the left out of habit, principle, tradition. Even though it's already down, they can't stop. Yeah. Consumption is the sacrament of capitalism. It's how we are supposed to worship, and what we consume defines who we are and what we are worth. Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Grinning. That's exactly right. Like, that's kind of an epic statement, but still completely accurate. Hi, Isaac. How you doing? Good to see you. I know people in Vancouver who work 2 jobs where they earn $15 an hour and their rent is $2,400 for a 1-bedroom apartment. They have to go to the food bank to eat. Just disgusting. Just disgusting. Like... that's disgraceful. And those kinds of stories, the capitalist death cult, try to turn around and sell us that, they try to sell us on the idea that that there's like a heartwarming element, right? Like, oh, look at this guy, he works 3 jobs to raise his daughter. And you're like, that's gross. Like, that's fucking gross. And it's gross that you're trying to show me that it's like a heartwarming story. Like, these people should not have to work 2 jobs to get an apartment. Period. And in my position is that no one should have to work any jobs to get an apartment. That everyone should have a room. That at least, at like the barest minimum. Every single person, if you are alive, you have a room. Everyone should have that, and it should be attached to literally nothing. It should just be assumed that you as a human being also get access to a space that is your own. And that is it. Full scale stop. No debate, no arguing, nothing like that. And I actually genuinely do think that if you're opposed to that, then you're kind of on the same level as like the Nazis. Like you're sort of this disgusting shell of a creature actively attempting to say that people should be homeless and starving because they don't wanna or aren't able to make like fucking lattes and shit. Like, that's gross. Like, it's gross. Like, but it's just who we are as a people. Like, it's just who we are. I could make bank selling that as a t-shirt. You know what? You know what I've been thinking about doing as a t-shirt? One is the word yikes. Just yikes. I think if the word yikes was across here, I'd make a lot of money. And then I also think I want to make a t-shirt that says the end is nigh. Just straight up like the old school, like the billboard, like the end is nigh. I just want to have a t-shirt walking around where I'm just like, the end is nigh. Like, here it is. It's here. I've seen a lot of letters to the editors in the media with people expressing their concern for the end of CRB, and every outlet is bloody silent. Of course. Why would the billionaires... the video I did today that comes out of the... I did a video where I read through an article in the National Post, and you can sense the desperation coming out of the capitalist death cult. They are extremely concerned about the basic income because they know. They know that they have abused and dismantled, like they know they're out of credibility, right? They know all they have left is violence. It's all they have left. All they have left is the threat of starvation and homelessness. They don't have an argument. There is no argument that is credible for why these people should be the rulers of this place. It just doesn't exist. And because they're aware of that, they look at a policy like the basic income and they go like, oh shit, like we will be abandoned if something like this comes in. And my statement at the end of the piece is good. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what we want. Don't we want to dismantle the capitalist system? Isn't the capitalist system the problem? Right? And the idea that we're going to end the CRB and just like have a huge spike in homelessness, because that's what's going to happen. Right? People are going to get evicted. There's going to be a huge spike in homelessness, just like we saw in the United States, right? Like, why are we voting for these liberals? Like, I can't think of a single... Why is this even a question? Right? Why is this even a question? Why is it even a question that someone could become homeless? Like, it's so disgusting to me that it's even a question in our society that it is possible someone would become homeless, right? Like... I think that is disgusting, and I think the people that support it are disgusting. Everyone should have food and shelter. It should be built into the system, and if the system's not providing food and shelter, then you don't need to participate in it. You certainly don't need to follow its rules or its laws, right? Like if you found out that a couple of parents were refusing to let their child sleep inside, even as they had an empty room, and they weren't feeding the child, right? Would you expect that child to listen to his parents? Would you expect that child to follow the rules that those parents laid out? Of course not. And in fact, if you had any compassion or sense in your head at all, if you saw that child doing things to fuck their parents over, you would think like, yeah, good, go get him, right? That's where we're at, right? If the government doesn't feed and shelter its citizens, it has no validity. And the private sector's not doing it. It wasn't doing it before the pandemic. It's not doing it now. So the idea that we need to, listen to any of these guys, these fucking psychopaths who are literally throwing us out on the streets and then having cops come and beat us up, right? Forget all that. Forget all that. These people have no authority. They have no credibility, right? They're just like an echo of an electoral system that maybe worked once, perhaps. But, like, they're not listening to us. If they were listening to us, we'd already have pharmacare and the basic income would have been passed 2 years ago, right? If they were listening to us. But they're not listening to us. They're not interested in what we have to say. The only reason they listen to what we have to say is so that they can make effective lies. That's it. Like, that's it. That's all they're doing. That's all they've ever done. And now it's just becoming obvious, right? Because now instead of like, oh, I didn't get that job and I can't get that like new car, right? Like, instead of it being like the boomer complaints where it's like, oh, I got to live in a smaller house, or, oh, yeah, now it's literally like, oh, I'm living in the street now. Oh, I literally did everything right. I sacrificed everything I had, and I can't even buy a house, right? At all. I can't buy a house at all. Like, it's obvious that this system is a failure, and it's obvious that its defenders are psychopaths. Like, it's really plain. Like, it's really plain. Like, on the same level as, like, Sauron and the orcs and the goblins are evil. Like, I'm like, yeah, obviously they are. Look at them. Just look at them. Like, it doesn't take much research to figure out that these guys are psychopaths, right? They're very open about it. All that's changed is that the populace is starting to go like, maybe working for psychopaths is a bad idea. Yeah, maybe working for psychopaths is a bad idea. Like, just stop. Just stop. Stop participating. Stop being part of this. Stop. Stop working for these guys. Period. Full stop. Right? Do what you need to do to survive. Stop working for these guys. If you've made it to this point, please be sure to like, share, subscribe. Give me money down below in the Patreon if you want to support leftists in the world. Just remember, you're special. Getting tired of these fucking morons, man. I'm getting tired of it. I'm getting fucking so fucking like... I'm so hoping that I am alive to see compassionate, empathetic, people who actually want to help, right? People in the society. I hope that I'm alive to see a leader actually do that and start doing things. And I'm so looking forward to hearing the capitalist cry. I'm so looking forward to listening to the capitalist cry and whinge about it. Just like the whining, like the National Post article was just like whining. We don't get free wage slaves anymore. like the same arguments coming out about like how releasing the slaves is a bad idea, right? Like just like cringy, embarrassing bullshit. Like, I'm so hoping that I'm alive to see this happen because like it would be like listening to Voldemort cry to Harry Potter that like, oh, if you kill me, then there will be less job opportunities for Death Eaters. Like, that's literally what it is now. And I have no sympathy. I have 0% sympathy. My perspective is that we should take all of their assets and all of their wealth away from them. I hope they cry about it. And to me, that's the centrist position. There are way worse things. Look at what they did to Mussolini, right? We could do that. We could do that. I don't see why we shouldn't, right? I can't think of a good credible argument for why we shouldn't do this to these guys. But, right, stripping them of their assets and their wealth is enough. Making them go get a job, right? Well, what am I supposed to do now? Go get a fucking job. Like, after the communists fomented their revolution against the monarchy, do you know what the monarchs did after that? They went and got jobs. There's a famous one where there was like a former king literally sweeping a floor in a cafe. That's because that's the only job that he could get. Because he doesn't have any skills. He's not worth anything. He doesn't know how to do anything. So he just became like a janitor, essentially. Hey, Chris, how you doing? I don't think I said hi to you, Ward. Good to see you, bud. I haven't seen you in here in a while, Ward, actually. Good to see you. Are there specific individuals to be identified? Or is it a social battle of ideas? I mean, if you want the specific individuals, you don't need to look too hard. Like for real, like who are the wealthiest Canadians? Like it's easy to find. Like David Thompson and family, right? Literally just billionaires, right? Like David Thompson was born a billionaire. Joseph Tsai. Joseph Tsai is at the set, like he came out of nowhere. 3 years ago, he wasn't on this list. He is one of these real estate hoarders that you've been hearing so much about, right? Like he buys retail properties and then extorts the value. That's what he does. That's his entire job. And it's the same story with this Toby Lutke guy, came out of nowhere, right? Because they're psychopaths that are scalping the housing market for their own benefit. That's what they do. That's how they made their money. Right? Galen Weston just take over the food distribution network, right? Get in between people who need food and shelter, right? And you're seeing all kinds of new names, like this guy, David Huang, and it's the same fucking story. They're just hoarding assets, right? Chip Wilson, Jim Pattison. Like what's funny about this list actually is that most of the old money is getting chased out of it, right? Like the only old money that really exists is David Thompson, right? Because David Thompson has basically 10% shares of every company in Canada. And Galen Weston has the same sort of grift going on. But everybody else is like the Irvings are like starting to fall off the list, right? Like all this kind of stuff, and you're getting all this new money in and it's 100% because of the way that the housing market works now, right? Where the billionaires are just buying up the housing, and so you've got all of these new billionaires who got in at the ground floor of this exploitive model, and now they're the wealthiest Canadians. Here's the fucking list. Like there's no fucking surprises here, right? It's this list and then whoever's in power, right? So Doug Ford, Jason Kenney, right? Like as far as I'm concerned, these guys should be rounded up and put on trial, like as traitors to humanity, like, and that's like bare minimum. That's like bare minimum. Hey, Onward, how you doing, bud? Pods would be neat. Yeah, right. Pods. The problem with late-stage capitalism is you run out of believable lies. Yeah. That's like once you're literally thrown out into the streets, it becomes difficult to believe that the capitalist system is worth anything. Oh, you just need to work harder and do the jobs that don't exist. Like, yeah, an escaped lab rat doesn't miss or honor the lab. Yeah. Shake that moneymaker. They're always saying how great jobs are. I'm sure they'll snap to it. Exactly. Their massive superior work ethic will ensure that they're billionaires again straight away, right? So what's the problem, right? What's the problem with taking away their assets? Like, let's just take away their assets and their wealth. They'll be billionaires again very shortly. Their superior work ethics will make it happen. I know, buddy. Milo is feeling my erratic energy. I've got pretty erratic energy going on right now. We in Canada and the US now have a two-tier system, third world and first world, with middle class quickly moving the bottom. There is no middle class. Like, anytime anybody says the words middle class to me, I'm just like, what are you talking about? There's no such thing as a middle class, right? You have a destitute class, right? And that's the 30% of citizens that don't own a thing, right? They have nothing. Most of them are one paycheck away from total destitution, right? Or they're literally living on the streets. And that's the bottom 30% of the society, right? And then you've got 60% of the society, so you're middle of the society, and they don't own anything either, right? Maybe they have a car, right? Or maybe they had maybe they got lucky and they got their first starter home, right? But that's it. And they're also one paycheck away from total destitution, by the way, right? This, and so there's literally 90% of your society have maybe they got their house, or maybe they got that kind of thing, but so they've got one little tiny shred. Then you've got 10% of the society that actually has wealth, right? And then you've got 1% of the society that has more wealth than the rest of the society. That's where we're at now. There is no middle class. It doesn't exist. That's a joke. And the people who are walking around pretending like there still is a middle class, it's like talking to somebody who's literally they might as well have a VR helmet on their head, living in a Sims world, being yeah, soon I'll be middle class. Yeah. It genuinely feels like I'm talking to just delusioned, completely out to lunch, totally detached from reality. And sometimes people say it to me and they're really genuine. They're really oh, I hope, and I'm literally sitting here being it's straight up not going to happen. It's straight up not going to happen. It really is they're begging that their great grandfather come back from the grave. That's kind of what it's like for watching these people now. That they really are kind of hoping that it'll just come back to life. That suddenly the system will actually arise from the grave, and Jesus Christ of capitalism will descend from the sky and bestow his capitalism on all the loyal citizens and all this kind of stuff. But no, the truth is that the corpse is in the ground. No, sorry, the corpse has died, right? But right now, the capitalists are keeping it shambling along, right? Like a fucking zombie. And how are they keeping it shambling along? Oh, with blood. With sacrifice. with human sacrifice. That's how they're keeping the zombie shambling. I say, shoot the zombie in the head, as one does, put it in the grave, bury it, with the people that are feeding it sacrifices. Pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward. Job creator, create yourself a job, yeah. Which country was this king from? I completely forget the king thing. Sorry, dude. Good to see you, Ezial. Good to see you. I completely forgot what I was saying, dude. My energy is all over the place right now, man. I went to a protest today, so it's just like. So on your resume, it says you were a king whose contractual term expired. Oh yeah, it was a Chinese thing. It was China. Virtue signaling capitalists are difficult. Yeah. They're the worst. They're the worst. There's the scene in American Psycho, right? Right near the beginning, Christian Bale's character, he has this monologue where he talks about how like we need to help people with all this kind of stuff. We should put forward and be compassionate and all of this like, and you can tell that it was like rehearsed and it's total fucking bullshit because he's a psychopath. Like this is what these guys are. Right? That when they get in public, like Bill Gates puts on his sweater vest and it's just like, well, you know, we try our best, right? And then goes to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile sex island and has sex with a little girl or boy, right? And the virtue signaling, in my view, like it's become real thin. It's become real thin. Like I think you really gotta be like. Absolutely, like the same type of people who like romance novels and Cosmo at this point are the only people that are actually like, well, he's saying nice things. He's such a sweetie. It's grow up time, man. Men lie. Men tell big fucking lies so that they can get power and get in your panties. Like that's what's going on. Like I don't know what needs to be said anymore. Like they've revealed themselves already. Like. It feels like I'm reading a book. Like imagine you're reading a book, right? And there's a young lady who has a thing for a dude, right? And then it turns out that he is a vampire, right? And not only like does she find out she's a vampire, she witnesses him kill her best friend, right? And then instead of being like, oh shit, something needs to be done about this vampire, or I should tell somebody about this vampire, instead of that, she's still like, oh, but he's so hot and dreamy, and oh, I'm so into him. Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like I'm reading a book, and like I'm like, what the fuck, girl? Like, he's a vampire, and you know he's a vampire, right? You flip the page, and she's like, I know he's a vampire. I know he killed my best friend, but like... he's so dreamy, and I really like him. He keeps saying all the right things. Like, how long would you continue reading this book? How long would you remain on the side of this protagonist? Because I got to tell you what would happen if I was reading that book. If I was reading that book and there was this girl who kept witnessing this vampire kill her friends and then kept defending the vampire and kept being like, oh, he's so dreamy. When the vampire killed her, I'd be like, oh, thank God. Fucking thank God. Like, oh. That's what I would be like. Like, fuck. Like, people like Justin Trudeau, for example. Like, this guy is a fucking vampire squid. Like, he's just like, all he says is feminism. That's it. He stands up and he goes, feminism. And then a bunch of people go, oh, feminism! Right? So, like, it's nice to know that the man that is orchestrating the downfall of Canadian society... It's nice to know that the guy who is working to destroy the poor, to destroy whatever middle class actually exists left in the society, nice to know that at least he's a feminist. Nice to know that he has like an equal rights quality about his plunging people into desperation and poverty. Super, super nice to know. Super nice to know. And the people who are like gonna get blindsided by it, I'm just going to look at these people and be like, welcome to the party, bitch. Like, welcome to the party. Like, I'm sorry that you've been asleep for the last 20 years. Like, I'm sorry that you haven't been paying any attention whatsoever. Like, welcome to the party. Like, the rest of us know what's up. There was a movie, The Last Emperor, about Chinese emperor ending up a gardener. Yeah. Robot dogs now have assault rifles mounted on their back. Yeah, the Drive headline. Yep. What? You mean those robot dogs didn't just stay as nice, cute little robot dancing dogs? What? I thought that those dogs were only going to be used as robot dogs for our amusement. At Super Bowl halftime games, they would come out and dance. All the cute YouTube video. Yeah. Like, we know. It's just like, it's happened now. Okay. Yeah, really living up to your screen name. I try, absolutely. Today I found a very sad Reddit forum called QAnon Casualties about people who have been disowned or had to cut off family because they've gone down the Q rabbit hole. Well, hold on. Was it... it's very sad. They're cut off. They only know people on Facebook. One woman said her mom was a husk of the beautiful person. So it's people who know Q people. It's not the Q people themselves who have been cut off. It's the people who have been cut off because they don't buy into the Q shit, right? So it's like the rational people who have been victims of this Qification. That's sadder. That's actually sadder. I'm glad to see that these people are at least coalescing. At least they're coming together. Yeah, they make my parents look like far left radicals. Yeah. Middle class never existed. It was always propped up and enculturated to betray the working class peers. Middle class equals working class with delusions of grandeur. Yeah. I mean, at least, like, the idea of the middle class always was, like, nice car, nice house, right? Like, I actually have, like, what's considered the American dream, right? I can work this job, and I have a spouse, and 2.5 kids, and like, everything is just kind of... Sure, I'm working this job that might maybe not be the best thing, but, you know, at least my life, I'm doing it for a purpose, right? Like, there seems to be, I'm part of, like, a system or any of that kind of stuff. Like, all of that is gone, though. Like, it's just a fucking zombie corpse now. Like, to believe that such a thing is even possible at this point without, like, major interventions is just living in a fairy tale land, which, I mean, so you're a liberal, basically. Yeah, I can't take much of QAnon Casualties. It's bad. Yeah, those people are grieving, dude. Like, that's real grief. Like, that's really, really real grief. The grief that I have towards the capitalist system is my own personal grief. Like, I've been betrayed too by this capitalist system and all that. But, like, to see family go into a delusional space. I have one family member that isn't like QAnon level, but definitely has fallen into what I consider to be a delusional space. And I won't reveal too much more because I don't feel comfortable doing that. But, like, it's very difficult. It's very difficult having a family member who exists in this delusional space that cannot be convinced, no matter what happens. Like, no matter what bad thing happens, right? Like, they will never be convinced. They will take to their deathbed that they made the right decisions. And it's just like, yikes. And it's hurt my relationship with that family member because I refuse to do that. And at this stage, it's not even a matter of opinion. It's just straight up like, hey, like, you're experiencing abuse. What are you tolerating it for? But they do. We're living in fanfic capitalism. I like that, actually. I might steal that, Bumbleguppy. Fanfic capitalism. Yeah, it is. It's like a fake. It's a fanfic It's a fake capitalism. Like, it doesn't really exist. Sounds like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Fantastic show, by the way. Fantastic show. Greetings, my fellow obsolete humans. Yeah, Q is a mass psychosis operation. Yeah, it's very weird, eh? Like, Q is very weird. Like, it's very interesting. And what's extra weird about it is that, like, there have been documentaries made about Q, and, like, things that have been revealed about the people who are supporting QAnon, right? And the Q people are still like, yeah, that's fine. Like, they don't care. They just don't care. And this kind of flows into my general feeling about Q, right? Which is like, This is why you can't lie to the populace, because they will be funneled into these extremely terrifying organizations. And honestly, like, and I really, I don't know how to say this without being mean, okay? But I think that this is fundamentally the truth. Anytime anybody goes and actually interviews people who are like deep in, like, they're Q believers, right? You can tell basically right away that these people are simple folk, right? Like, I'm really trying not to disparage them. I'm really trying not to insult them when I say this. But, like, you know, they didn't score the best in their classes and they tried really hard, right? Like, they can't grasp the scale of the con. They can't. They literally cannot. And so they have to believe that the individuals that they are interacting with are on their side and well meant. Because if they did understand the scale of the con, then they'd be smart enough to not fall for it in the first place, right? Like, we're talking about simple folk, right? It's like that meme from Blazing Saddles that you've seen, right? These are simple folk, the common clay of the new land. You know, morons. But it is the truth, right? And they're so disoriented. They're so disoriented and they're so displaced, and they don't know who to turn to, and they don't know who to believe, and they don't know anything. And so they have fallen prey to this. And I kind of agree with you, Bumbleguppy. I am yet to see, like, the connection that convinces me that Q is a CIA operation. Like, I'm not quite there yet, but I definitely could be convinced, right? It would be very easy to convince me. I literally am one document away. Like, if somebody came up to me and said, like, hey, a CIA document leaked, and here's them trying to manipulate the Q movement, I'd be like, oh, yeah. And then I would save that document and I'd show it to you, right? And that would be what I would do. And exactly, you can't convince me Q isn't CIA. Not that it matters either way. That's the thing, is that even if it is CIA, like, even if it was a CIA thing where the CIA was involved, I think they've lost control of it. I think that's the real thing to walk away from the Q movement, is that even if it was this, like, state-funded CIA operation, all this kind of stuff, so on and so forth, it's very clear that they've lost control of it. That like, they don't really have control of this Q movement, and that the Q movement is just kind of its own thing now, and it's just doing its own stuff. And now it's become pretty clear that the political apparatus is actually beholden to this beast that it created, right? So it's like they unleashed this monster thinking that they could manipulate and control the populace, but the populace is going to do what the populace does. And yeah, I think Q is a psyop to divide extreme right, and extreme wokeism is a psyop to divide the left. I doubt either started out that way, but they are now. Yeah, well, and this is the controversial thing, especially to Americans. But, like, the Q crowd, like the Q Republican types and the, like, Black Lives Matter crew, like, those guys are natural allies. Like, go down the laundry list of their complaints, right? They're very well connected to one another in terms of, like, workers' rights, in terms of, like, their understanding that something has gone wrong in the society, in terms of all this kind of stuff. If you had a Q guy write down, like, how would America be a better place? How would you like to make a better America, right? Make America great again. What do you want to do, right? Go down the list, write, like, a laundry list of things you'd like to see. I bet you if you did that to a Black Lives Matter person, the lists would be near identical, right? You got to keep those two groups separate. You got to keep them separated. It's the same thing that happened with the Occupy movement and the Tea Party. That the Tea Party and the Occupy movement were actually starting to coalesce with one another, and they were starting to understand that they were just coming to the same problem from different angles, right? That the Tea Party was all like, government is the problem, and the occupiers were like, no, corporations are the problem. And then it was the occupiers who started to say, like, okay, wait a minute, but the problem actually is that corporations have embedded themselves in the government. And so the Tea Partiers aren't wrong, right? They just see it from a different angle, and they're coming at it from a different angle. So if we go over there and say, like, hey, you guys understand that, like, corporations and governments actually merging is the problem. And so we actually ostensibly are allies with one another. So if you take over the Republican Party or segments of the Republican Party, and we take over segments of the Democratic Party, we can actually come together and all encampments cleared. Right? You see how that worked? You see how that fucking worked? Right? Like, it's what I saw the whole time as I was watching it. I wish I had a YouTube channel then. I wish I had understood then that this YouTube thing could actually be monetized and could actually be a thing. Because, like, when I saw the Occupy movement, I saw two forces that were coming together and then got cleared away. That's what I saw. And I see very similar echoes with the Black Lives Matter and the Q movement. That, like... and guess which one's going to get cleared away, do you think? Which one do you think is going to get cleared away? Yeah, are we bound to 19th century social systems? I mean, there's a lot of, like, feudal systems that still exist in our society. Like, the funeral service system that exists here in Canada, at the very least, is basically just 12th century feudalism. Like, not much different. It's pretty similar. Yeah, Q is highly organized. Yeah. It's fascists. Yeah. Fascists always prey on the ignorant masses. Well, because it's all very straightforward. It's easy, right? Like, and an organization like Q, like, when you are simple folk, you need simple solutions, and simple organizational structures are effective, right? And simple folk will go along with it because, first of all, that's what their whole experience has been, right? School, right? Like the work environment, it's all structured that way. So to organize a political movement that way is easy. I'm lucky my father has always refused to pay for cable TV on principle. It's really funny, man. I like that a lot. My mom doesn't use Facebook very much, or they would be headed down that route. For sure. Yeah, you've talked about your parents on this channel before, dude. Like, it's... That would be terrifying. That would be really, really terrifying to watch your family members start to go down that QAnon route. That would be a tough one. That'd be a tough one. I bet about 50% of everyone who went to high school is in Q now. Unreal, man. Unreal. Mossad? What, you think Mossad is involved? In Q? Nah. I think Q is a psyop, yeah. I agree. I see politicians squirming while agreeing with Trump and Q, but they go along for support, yeah. It's out of control if it was ever meant to be, of course. And what is going to happen... So right now, Q is very much like Trump, right? That it's all just Trump. And Trump has done a pretty good job of allying himself with the Q movement. And so it's just like Trump. And so it's going to be Biden-Trump again, unless something miraculous happens. But eventually there does come like a moment where Donald Trump needs to kind of tip his hat and say farewell, because he either is not going to attain power, and that becomes obvious, or he does and then serves out his term, right? So who's the person that comes along and sweeps up the Q movement, right? Like, there is for sure already a politician in the Republican Party that is sitting there going, like, we got to take over this Q thing, man. Like, this Q guy, we got to be on top of this one. And it's either going to be someone that comes out of the Q movement, like your Marjorie Taylor Greens, right? And all like these nut jobs, right? I think that the dangerous person in the party right now is actually Trump Jr. I think Trump Jr. is the guy that I would be the one that I would be paying attention to. Because it follows very clear Machiavellian lines, right? That if the choice is between a candidate that people don't know, or a candidate that people don't know but they're familiar with the family name, they go with the family name. You saw that here in Canada with Trudeau, right? Justin Trudeau got elected because his name is Trudeau. Like, that's That is it. Like, they put him up there. He's kind of got a pretty boy look about him, right? He said, what, like electoral reform and weed reform, and my name is Justin Trudeau. And we all were like, Trudeau, eh? Oh, yeah, I know Trudeau, right? So we went for it, right? And the same thing is going to happen in the Q movement, that they're going to look at, like, your DeSantis's and all this kind of stuff, and then they're going to see, oh, Trump, right? And they're going to go with Trump, right? They're going to go with Trump. Hey, Alex, how you doing, bud? And Trump Jr., in my opinion, is actually way more dangerous than his father, right? Because there's this really, really wonderful picture that I can never find anymore of when they announced that Donald Trump won. Donald Trump is sitting there and he's just got this look on his face of like, what? I won? Like, he's bewildered by it. Like, he doesn't know what to make of it. Trump Jr. is standing beside him and his hands are literally like curled into balls and he's got this crazed look on his face and his face is bright, bright red. And he's just like, you can see like the power surge that he was having. That's a man who wants to be the president, and he wants the power. He wants the power, and he will galvanize the Q movement in order to do it. So we'll see how it all goes, but people are so passionate, but it's about nonsense. I'm like, unless you're discussing class, leave me out of it. Well, and it is about nonsense, isn't it? Like, it's just speculative nonsense the entire time. Like, you ask them for any evidence or any shred of anything, right? And they've got nothing ever, right? So it's just like, because they're simple folks, right? You can just create this sort of fairy tale land that they live in, right? And they do, right? It's not much different than talking to, like, young guys that get really passionate about, like, comic books or Star Wars, right? Like, it's all just made up nonsense, but it's connecting them to something, right? It's connecting them to some idea that they want to spend their life talking about, right? But it's not real, right? It's not going to manifest itself. Like, talking about Star Wars isn't going to get you a girlfriend, dude. Like, talking about Star Wars isn't going to, like, manifest some kind of, like, enormous thing into your life. You're not going to have, like, a big, like, epiphany moment of your own personal realization, right? And even more than that, like, it's so weird to me that there's a lot of these, like, right-wing types, especially QAnon types, that will actually watch something like Star Wars and not realize that, like, hey, when you talk about Antifa in negative ways, you are shitting on Luke Skywalker, right? That, like, the story of Star Wars is about a ragtag rebellion that formed ranks and blew up a Death Star, right? That's what it's about. And, like, here's a ragtag band of leftists in your own society that are attempting to go and blow up a Death Star. Oh, they just need to get better jobs and all this kind of stuff. Hey, how'd you like that new Star Wars movie? Oh, I love Star Wars. Star Wars is great. The entire system of property we have in Canada is built on feudal laws. Yeah, the word tenant was originally used to refer to feudal lords holding land of a king, of course. Well, it's, for fuck's sake, it's landlord. We still call them this. They're still called landlord. Forget about tenant. It's a landlord. Like, it's right fucking there. Late stage feudalism is capitalism. Late stage capitalism is feudalism. We're on a 1,000-year cycle. Oh my god. I hope it takes us less than 1,000 years to get back into feudalism. Used to be simple folk could get a factory or labor job. Now they work retail and join Facebook. Yeah. Well, and if you create a culture of lies, right? Like, if you just create a culture of distrust, if you create a culture of, like, to me, this is actually one of the great successes of the psychopath capitalist death cult, is convincing people who are clutching onto their Bible, right, to hate themselves. That is the biggest success, because the seminal statement of Christ is, love your neighbor as yourself. Right? But that statement implies that you actually like yourself, right? But if you're filled with self-loathing and you have no self-esteem, Saying love your neighbor as yourself means treat them with disrespect and shit on them, because that's what you do to yourself, right? And so the capitalists simultaneously venerate the Bible while denigrating the people that do. And it's been very successful for them. Like, a society that has no self-esteem can just be beat up, right? It's like when you see these complete and total assholes who abuse their girlfriends or their wives, right? And like you start talking to her and you're just like, hey, you should get away from this guy. And very steadily you realize like she has no sense of self-worth. Like she doesn't think that she deserves better. Like she thinks she deserves this. But now it's an entire society. An entire nuclear society at that. I kind of agree with the Chapo guys that Trump Jr. is kind of cringe tryhard, but who knows? Oh yeah, I agree with that completely. He is a total cringe tryhard. Like he wants to be the president, dude. Like he knows what his trajectory is. Like he understands it, and he's working, and that's why he's called a tryhard, right? Because he's trying to do it. He's hiring speech coaches. His dad lets him talk to the audience and do speeches. And he's okay. Like, he's not as good as Trump is, but he's okay. And I mean, he's young, right? So, like, he knows what's going to happen to him. And all it's going to take is for him to try at it. And it's going to happen. It's going to manifest itself. Just on basic Machiavellian lines. Right? Populations will go for rulers who have a familiar name. They will. Like that's a very Machiavellian sort of principle, but it's completely borne out recently, no less. Like when Donald Trump defeated Jeb Bush, right? That was an enormous moment. That was the moment that I knew Donald Trump was going to win. When Donald Trump pushed Jeb Bush aside and the Republicans were done with the Bushes. You guys heard that? It's got a little pug here who needs his ear itched. Because humans get stuck. That if you can convince a human that, oh, here's the name. This is the name. Okay, Milo. Come here. Oh, I know. I can give you scratches and stuff, dude, but I gotta talk to people. Yeah, get your balance. There, now I can scratch you, buddy. See how easy this was? Could have done this the whole time, buddy. Instead, you're gonna complain about it. Okay. I don't know anything about Trump Jr. He's a dope. Like, that's the thing that's fun about Trump Jr. is that he has less experience and less credibility than his father. Like, he's never had a job. He's never really done anything of value, right? He doesn't actually do anything. He's just a skyscraper child, right? Who understands the opportunity that's in front of him. That's it. That's Trump Jr. He's essentially an empty vessel. Like, he has his ambitions are his own. I don't know what his ambitions are on the world stage because I don't think he knows. I think he just wants to be the president. Because everyone will have to respect me if I'm the president. Now they wouldn't like the new Star Wars movies because it's been quote unquote taken over by the SJWs. Well, the corporate pandering that exists in the new Star Wars stuff is really obvious and frustrating. Like, they're just not telling the story anymore. I'm so glad that like 75% of American politics is arguing over whether a new movie is too woke or the new Dave Chappelle special is offensive. Yeah. Although, I do have an opinion of Dave Chappelle's newest special, Closer, which clearly, in my view, wasn't really meant to be... it was less... Like, his previous stuff is better. That Closer was clearly designed as more of a political piece. and which I think Dave Chappelle has earned. I think Dave Chappelle has earned this. And so it wasn't as good in terms of its just raw entertainment ability. But I think it's quite bold what Chappelle is doing, right? That he's taking an issue head on. He's taking an issue like head on. And it's very rare to see a figure in America do this, where they take an issue head on. It's very brave what he's doing, I think. And I think part of it is that because he knows he can't get canceled, like there's no he has like if Dave Chappelle just released shit on YouTube or just released shit on his own website, he'd make $100 million. Like he doesn't really even need to be doing this Netflix stuff. Like that's how big he is as a person. And him taking this issue on, like he doesn't need to do that. He could have just left. Yeah. I've seen Dave Chappelle's specials 3 times each. And that's strictly because Dave Chappelle is a master of his craft. He's a master craftsman. It's very, very impressive. He's a very, very impressive comedian. And as somebody who wants to be on the stage himself and is figuring out where, like, I'm figuring out where my place is on the stage. For a brief moment, I thought I would be a comedian, but I think that's off the cards. I don't think that comedian is where I'm going to land. But I watch Dave Chappelle, and he is a master craftsman, and there is always something to learn. There's always something to learn, and really the thing to learn from Dave Chappelle when it comes to just the craft of being on stage and being watched is that you earn a lot of credibility if you're just on stage and you're chill as fuck. Because people don't want to be there. They don't want to be seen on stage, right? They don't want the eyes. They don't want all that kind of stuff. And Chappelle really just captures people, right? Half-Baked was good enough for me. I'm good. Yeah. What? You didn't think that Half-Baked was like a seminal statement of marijuana laws in the United States? You didn't think that it was... Come on, man. The Chappelle Show alone. The Chappelle Show alone has some really brilliant shit in it. Black Klansman, right? Like his Rick James bitch stuff, like all that kind of stuff. Like he has some really brilliant shit in there. One personal trait I'm actually proud of is that I'm not afraid to go without. I haven't watched TV but Simpsons and Star Trek since the 70s. Just turn it off easy. Yeah, that's nice. I don't watch TV either. Just tell me the weather. I turn it off again. Yeah, that's fair. There's a lot of junk out there. Hey, it's a Let's Play Dog Ear Scratch Simulator. I love this channel. Exactly. Dude, if Milo let me scratch him the whole time, I would. But he eventually... He's got to stay in a very particular spot when he's on my lap. And he thinks that he's smaller than he actually is. He wants to be a lap dog really, really badly, but he's a little bit too big for it. I canceled Netflix when I burned out on midnight diner binges. Oh, yeah. I saw Chappelle's previous special. Yeah. Not offended. Not a priority. Yeah. I won't watch his turf stuff. Yeah, this is exactly the conversation that I think is worth having. Because I understand why people are upset with him. Especially this new special where he really takes this head on, where he's like really, really trying to find a way. And I believe him when he says he's trying to find a way to find unification on this particular issue. I don't know if I agree with the angle that he's coming at it from. I don't know if it will be effective. I will say this about Dave Chappelle, especially when it comes to trans issues, is that I actually have found Dave Chappelle's wandering through the issue of trans rights and wandering through the issues of trans people to be quite helpful to my own journey of trying to understand trans issues and trans rights and all of that. Like, witnessing someone articulate their own journey with such ability that Chappelle has, really, yeah, it really did help me sort of come to a better understanding. And I think that's really all it is that it is about an understanding that, like, I don't really have to understand what a trans person is going through. I just need to respect that their experience is real and genuine and it is part of the human experience. I think that that's really what it is. Especially, like, as a straight white male, like, I'm the last person who should have an opinion on what is going on with a trans person, right? Like, I can't know and I don't know, but I do know that trans people are going through something that is real and is genuine and is not, it's not like they're choosing to do this, right? It is part of their lived experience. It's something that the universe has said, and this shall be your path, right? You shall be a man in a woman's body, to use that kind of terminology. And I don't even know if that terminology is particularly accurate, really, but I think it's working with... yeah, I don't like the whole "I had a trans friend so I can say that stuff" line. Seems disingenuous. Yeah. Sounds like if I said I'm not racist, I have a black friend. Yeah. I respect all of that. Like, my position, especially with someone like Chappelle, who's clearly walked into the weeds, on purpose and on honest, and on it, is that his struggle has helped my struggle. I think that's how I'll say it ultimately. That I do think that he is attempting... I don't think he's attempting to hurt anybody. I think that if anything, I think he's attempting to include a group in on the joke who typically has not been part of it. And that inclusion, I think, is ultimately a good thing. Like, we should, if the game is that we can make fun of anybody, if that's the game, then let's include this group in that and normalize their inclusion, right? Like, I feel like that's by itself already a good thing. And then his struggle through those issues has helped my struggle. For sure it has. And I can't deny it. Like, and I feel that way about a lot of people. That sometimes I look at a guy and I say, like, Jordan Peterson is the example I'll use. I hate to evoke the name of Peterson. And Peterson is someone that I can explicitly state that I disagree with strongly on most issues, right? He and I are exactly on the... He denied a whole people's existence? I don't think that's true, dude. Like, I just don't think that's true. Not from what I've seen. Like, not what I've seen. Quite the opposite, in fact. Quite the opposite. Especially in this new special. He's very explicitly saying that, like, no, I believe you. Like, I believe that you're going through something. I believe that what you're experiencing is an experience. I just don't understand it. I just don't know anything about it. Which, I mean, I think that is also a fair thing to say. Like, he's a straight black man. Like, of course he doesn't know anything about it. But it's about just respecting that those people are going through this and they're honest and to allow them to breathe, right? To allow them to breathe. And to me, it's the struggle that matters the most. It just seems like unnecessary punching down, I guess. This is an interesting point. This is an interesting conversation that especially when it comes to comedy, right? Because when this phrase started to come out, this punching down phrase, and like, excuse me, like, when Caitlyn Jenner came out as trans... Now, none of us can be sure if he's actually straight or black, yeah. He said he agrees with J.K. Rowling, there are only two genders. Did you watch? Well, what I don't remember his exact phrase, but that... I I don't remember his exact phrase on this. He did agree with J.K. Rowling, and he did say, I do come down on the side of the TERFs. Which, like, that's a bit of a, like, okay, bud. Like, maybe leave it a little grayer than that, perhaps. But I think what I'm trying to say, when it comes to Dave Chappelle, is that even if I disagree with him, right? And even if you come down on the side of disagreeing with someone like Dave Chappelle, like I disagree with Jordan Peterson, right? That doesn't mean that you shouldn't respect the struggle and that the struggle is being done genuinely, right? Like, I don't believe for a minute that Chappelle is attempting to hurt anybody. I haven't really seen anything to convince me that he's trying to genuinely cause people distress or harm. I just see a guy who's trying to struggle through something. And that struggle that he is having is a struggle that lots of people are having, right? Myself included. I'm not a perfect person who understands completely about everything that's going on. And especially on this particular issue. Like, I of course don't know what the experience of a trans person is. Like, it's so outside my wheelhouse. I don't think cis men should discuss trans people at all. This is not your journey or struggle. And I think this is kind of what I'm saying, is that like, I would like to understand, or I would at least like to come to a place. For me, it's about normalization. Do you understand what I mean by that? That it's like, I hope that I get to a point, or that I am at a point where, like, it's like, because I came from, like, a fundamentalist Christian background, from, like, deep Manitoba. I argued that gay people were evil until my early 20s. I would make that argument, and I would back it with biblical kind of stuff and all that. And so the journey out of that, invite a trans person on. I have, yeah. Isabella is probably going to come on, and I hope to talk to her about these things. I haven't had the opportunity to really talk to her about her journey as a trans person. My big critique of lots of people who talk about trans rights and talk about trans issues is they won't have trans people on, like Joe Rogan. I critique Joe Rogan pretty hard on this, actually, because Joe Rogan has gone so far to have, like, really anti-trans people on his show, like really anti-trans people. And so to do that while simultaneously not having a trans rights activist on, I think is completely disingenuous. Completely disingenuous. Like, it really revealed him as an explicit transphobe. Like, it's one thing for us to have a conversation about Dave Chappelle's special. Like, that's one thing. But, like, if I were to invite people on my show who are explicitly anti-trans and who are explicitly working against the trans community in big scale ways, and then not also attempt to balance that with, like, an outright trans rights activist, I think that's it's very revealing. It's very, very, very revealing, right? And for me, I just want to see trans people become normalized in the society, if you understand what I mean. That, like, I don't really need to understand the journey, because I don't understand the woman's journey. Like, the idea that, like, you get a period and, like, you're having a period and all that, like, wow, like, what a crazy experience. Like what is it like to have the ability to hold a child inside of your body, like those sorts of things, right? Not part of my thing, but I understand that is part of the larger picture. Like, I understand that there is a journey there that I am not necessarily privy to. And I hope a similar thing happens with the trans community, that people kind of come to a place where they're just like, okay, like, I don't really get it personally, like, obviously, but that's okay. Like, I don't have to. It doesn't matter. That's not what's at issue. That what is at issue is that there are people who, when they see a trans person or when they hear about trans things, they are repulsed by it, that they're repelled by it. and that's concerning to me. That's where the concern comes from. So for me, it is all about a kind, and the only word that I can come up with that I think makes sense to what I'm trying to articulate is like normalization. That like one day we'll all watch a TV show, and there will be a character on the TV show, and the character will just be the character, and then in like season 4 or something, it'll come out that they're like gay or trans, right? And people will just be like, oh yeah, okay. That it won't be like this big fucking hoopla. There won't be like a need for any of that. Like to me, that's the kind of goal, right? That, you know, gay and lesbian and trans and straight and all of these people will just coexist together, and the negotiations that need to occur for that to occur need to be talked about. And how do we talk about it? How do we talk about it? Like it, and this gets into an interesting conversation of like, do we think comedy is a healthy way to have these conversations? Because we don't really have these conversations, do we? Right? Like we're not really having conversations with one another about trans inclusivity, right? There's no national conversation about these sorts of issues. That it really does come down to like fucking comedians. Like that's really what it comes down to in this society. Wouldn't it be better if we actually had like a national conversation about like, hey guys, there are trans people. There are these people who live in the world who feel like they are women in men's body or men's in women's bodies, and they want to transition from one to the other. And that this is a real experience and it's a real phenomenon that's happening. Shouldn't we be able to like act like I have literally never seen a documentary about this, right? I've literally never. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure if such a thing exists. That let's actually have like an informative, very and you can be even medical about it if you like. Right? One would assume that such a thing would be right at the forefront of what we were doing. So, and the trans experience is very interesting to me, just because it really shows everyone that like human sexuality and what it is to be a human in the world is way more complex than we thought. Like way more complex. Yeah, you're right on this, Bumbleguppy, 100%. The whole LGBTQ movement is about normalization, but more importantly, stop killing them. Yeah. Like, there was this one that, like, Joe Rogan had this one lady on, and it fucking infuriated me because her entire thesis of her book, which I then went and read just to see how fucking ridiculous this is, the entire thesis of her book is that when I was a kid, there weren't all of these trans people around, and now it seems as though there are trans people everywhere. It must be internet radicalization. That's literally what she's saying. Like, and this is a person Joe Rogan had on to uncritically spread her dumb bullshit around. And like, it's so obvious to refute. Like, her question is, like, why are all these trans people around? And you literally just need to look this dumb Karen in her stupid face and say, they've always been here, dumbass. We've just been killing them. Right? So if somebody stands up and says, I'm a trans, y'all, we fucking lynch them. We beat the shit out of them. And so here's a moment, thanks to the hard work by the gay and lesbian community, where we've created this little crack in time, this little moment in the society where trans people are starting to be able to stand up and say, I am trans, and we don't beat them up for it. We don't lynch them for it. Maybe we go and grumble in our beers about it, but that's like the thing that's happening. And you're starting to see all of these trans people were always here. They were always here. They just no longer need to hide. Because we've created a moment in society where we won't kill them for being trans. Like, this is how fucking stupid these anti-trans people are. Where are all these trans people coming from all of a sudden? I don't remember all these trans people. Yeah, dude, because your brothers would go and kill them. Like, very straightforward shit. Very straightforward shit. And yeah, dude, but so you're on the money about that. And I really understand why trans people are very passionate about this subject. Because of this. Because they know that the cycle of victimization can continue again. They know, they're aware, right? Like this crack that's existing, right? That's very new. It's very new, right? Like and it's and even it's not and it's fleeting, and it could be fleeting. Right? It could very well just be like, Caitlyn Jenner dies and there isn't another like trans icon really, and then it just becomes another underground movement again, and we start beating the shit out of them and killing them again. That can happen. For sure it can. So I really understand. I really, really understand why the trans rights movement is really passionate and really, really up in arms. And I especially understand why they're going after somebody like Dave Chappelle, who is like willfully wading into those weeds, who's just like willfully just going like, okay, I'm gonna talk about this. People say I can't talk about this. I'm gonna talk about it. Right? So it's and it's a very complex issue. It's a very complex issue and there's a lot of dummies in the conversation. There's a lot of dummies in the conversation. Joe Rogan keeps interviewing them. I think everyone has to be able to discuss it, but it's like saying men can't talk about abortion. They need to know their place in the conversation. I think that's right, Onward. I think that's right. That seems to be the thing. Because, like, yeah, I think ultimately it does come down, like, the abortion issue really is just, like, that's a woman's issue, right? Like, that is a women's issue. Like, men should not be making legislation about that. That's a women's issue. It's a women's health issue. And that's how it should be treated. And very much the same way with the trans conversation. That it is like when a trans person tells you about their lived experience, it's best that you just believe them. Because what they are experiencing is very unique to them, and even unique down to the individual, right? Because you do have like men transitioning to women transitioning to men, and then that journey is going to have its own individual sort of slice on it. And what I find fascinating about it is that they feel the need to do it. Like, that's what's the most fascinating thing, right? That I have attempted to try to find an analogy in my own life in order to sort of come to grips with it. And I think the closest analogy I have is my playing music. I don't really like intellectually say, and then I will sit down and play some music, and then that will, like, it's more that I have to do it. It's more that there is something inside of me that must be expressed, that there is a spirit that has to be articulated, that it is a must. It's not like it's not something that I can put aside. And when I talk to trans people and I talk to about their experience, they have a similar kind of way of articulating it, that it is just like, this is something I have to do. Like, it's I have to explore it. I have to know more. And especially now that there's like this crack in the society where they have the freedom to be able to do that. And then also the technology has gotten into interesting places as well, right? And I'm more or less of the opinion where I'm just sort of sitting here being like, well, then just let them. Just let them. Like, let them do what they think they need to do, right? You guys hear me say all the time, right? Like, there is something inside of you that only you know, and it must be expressed. Well, here it is. Here it is. And it turns out that the things that humanity want to express are far more complicated and interesting than we initially thought, right? And for many people, these things will be strange and scary. And how do we get through that? How do we get through that? The people who think that the trans stuff is scary and frightening and odd, right? And it's very that's a hard road, like, because the Q people are in the conversation too, right? Like the Q people are in the conversation too, and it's a very very tough conversation to have, and I just hope beyond hope that we can have these conversations without alienating one another, right? Like, that's my big concern. Like, I don't really talk about trans rights issue or trans people on the channel because almost every single time I do, somebody really shits on me for it. Like, I get banned off of subreddits and stuff like this. And I feel like some of the stuff that I've said has been pretty innocuous. Like strategy stuff more than anything, right? Like what's a good strategy to move forward with your agenda and all of that kind of stuff, right? And if I was part of a movement, like, well, okay, like, here are some strategies. And it's odd how quickly the name calling comes down the pipe, right? It's odd how quickly that you get, like, called you get insulted. Like, it's very and with kind of innocuous statements. But I have come to understand why that is the case. And it does really boil down, and I've said it already, but it's worth restating, that trans people are scared that they're going to start getting killed again. And they don't want that to happen. So even like a casual dismissal has to be met with militant force, it seems. And it's tough to disagree with that. It's tough. Like, I mean, we see what's happening here in America, right? Like, we see what's going down, right? Like, the trans movement can get swept up in it. So it's so I understand why it is how it is, I think, is what it really comes down to. It's funny how many leftists and communists have produced after deconverting from evangelical fundamentalist Christianity. The best of us leave the religion and seek the truth. Does seem to be the case. Because, I mean, like, I know I respect, like, the pursuit of spirituality. I respect that internal journey. And but Christianity especially has become just part of the power structure, right? So yeah, Bumbleguppy. Me, think for yourself. Them, monkey. Yeah. U.S. capitalist culture needs racism and hate against minorities to keep people from a revolution. Yeah, you're on it again, Bumbleguppy. Like, if they can have us turning on each other, then we're not going to turn on the owners, right? That's really the truth. People don't respect true comedy. It's about someone taking it personally. Yeah, and that's an interesting talking point too, Ruth. Like, what is comedy? Like what is the purpose of this? Like, what is it we're attempting to achieve, or what is it we're attempting to do? And, like, comedians always say that their goal is to just make sure people laugh, and if you can get someone to think about something while they laugh, that's great too. But is that enough? There are people who kind of question that kind of position as well, because, like, you can laugh from a place of cruelty, right? Like, you can laugh from a place of cruelty, and I mean, when comedy seems to really do well and thrive when the society is doing well, and when the society is in decline, it seems to not do so well. Really, is what it comes down to. When I was a kid, there weren't any black kids at my Klan rallies. Yeah, Bumbleguppy. Yeah, dude, you're on it. Oh, yeah. Damn, I remember back when I was in middle school in the late 2000s, people were homophobic, transphobic, ableist as fuck. Back then, saying someone had two dads was supposed to be an insult. That's right. That's true. That culture shaped my view of LGBTQ, and I was homophobic and transphobic as fuck. Because I thought you were supposed to be. Yeah. Yeah. That is a real good fucking point, dude. Like, and it does come down to like, no, we just need to like normalize that there are different types of people in the society. We need to normalize that, like, and it's fine. Like, that's the thing that gets me the most. Like, what's it matter to you? Like, what's it matter to you really? Like, so there's a trans person. There's a person who views themselves as a man in a woman's body, right? And they are transitioning and they're doing something about it. What's it matter to you? Really? Like, really? What's it matter to you? And I don't... I really do think, especially with the trans community, I really do think it taps in to some like deep monkey level of just like, that's weird, I don't like it. Like, and that's it. Like, that's as far as it goes. And we don't want to actually take the step back and be like, oh, here's an experience that is foreign to my own, and always will be. But it's honest, and so, and it taps into that kind of like, in a funny sort of way, the trans experience taps into the monkey fear of helplessness, right? Follow me on this one, okay? Because I do think this is true, that we take comfort in the idea that my experience is generally the experience, right? You see this all the time, that people take their own experiences and universalize them, right? And they say that if you're not having the experience that I experienced, there must be something wrong with you, right? We see that all the time. And I think that is a way to kind of create comfort for oneself in this large sort of universal, or this large uncaring universe that will crush you at a moment's notice. And so if everyone is having more or less the same sort of experience, and like, men don't really understand what women are up to, and women don't really understand what men are up to, but at least that's like just like one of two, right? And once you start breaking that down, and once it starts to become shakier, the idea that someone is having an experience that you literally will not understand, like you cannot understand it, and I genuinely do think, like, as a straight person, if I were to study that issue, and if I were to really pay attention to that issue, and to that experience, and like read books about it and pay attention to art, like I think the best a straight, especially a straight white man, will ever achieve is the understanding that they're not going to understand it. I think that's the best that a straight white man will ever do, and I think that's all the trans community is asking, is just understand that you won't understand it, and understand that I'm having a human experience, and I do think that that's good enough. But it creates a sense of fear. It creates a sense of fear because it enters uncertainty into like the deep sexual self, right? And that the idea that, oh, my lived experience is not the universal experience, and that destabilizes people on a deep, intrinsic, sort of existential kind of a way. That, well, I don't know a lot, but I feel certain about this. Well, now you're not so certain about that, are you? And like, people don't like that feeling, man. Like, people do not like that feeling. People don't like feeling destabilized. People don't feel like that way. And my deep hope is that I will be able to have these kinds of conversations with trans people and their supporters and not immediately get called a bigot for it. Like I have lived my entire life learning about these communities from a position, from the start gate of they are my enemies. Straight up, like they're going to go burn in hell. Like that kind of level. And so going from that to this has been quite a journey. And it's been an unfortunate journey. I wish it didn't have to be that way. And when I look back and think, what is like the thing that I wish changed in that conversation the most, I think the biggest thing would be that I wish that as I was genuinely struggling, honestly struggling with these issues, that I wasn't instantly called a bigot for struggling, right? Because people are struggling. And in my view, the struggle is valuable. The struggle itself is valuable. Which ties in finally to the point that I was trying to make about Peterson. I kept talking about him before. Like, I completely disagree with basically everything that guy has to say. Like, 95% of it, right? Because everybody, you know, broken clock, right, twice a day kind of situation. But I really do admire his struggle. I really do admire that he is clearly struggling all the time. Like, all the time, he's clearly struggling. And there's something about the struggle. There's something about the struggle that is valuable. That, like, if somebody who, like, 100 years ago, someone like Jordan Peterson would be like a colonial nightmare capitalist. Like, this guy would be like with Christopher Columbus cutting off people's fingers and shit, right? Like, the idea that a guy like that is being genuinely confronted with these issues and is genuinely struggling with them to the degree he is struggling with them, there is something of value there, I think. Now, I don't think he's like come out the other side like a fucking poet or a saint or anything like this, and I think when Peterson dies, people will forget him immediately. But it's I don't want to just outright dismiss his struggle. Anyway. POC, if you're still listening, bud, you've been quiet this whole time. I hope I didn't offend you. I hope you're not mad with me, because I especially on this issue it's a very, like, I have to speak from a place of ignorance almost by default. And I don't know that I can do better than that, which is unfortunate. And so maybe, and that's why I don't really talk about it that often. I don't really know how we even got on the subject, honestly. Just sort of happened that way. And I will tell you this, man. Watching Isabella deal with, because Isabella's a trans woman, watching her deal with the bullshit, there's so much fucking bullshit. Like, there is so much fucking bullshit. It's so obvious. Like, that's something that is obvious. Like, forget about trying to understand it. Forget about coming to a place of compassion or empathy or anything. Like literally, just, like, be near a trans person and see how the society treats them. Like, just stand around them for a period of time and just see how they're treated. Like, it's unacceptable. Like, it's unacceptable the way that she is treated on the regular. Like, she's talking into the mic and people will just come up to her and just shit on her for being a trans person. And it's just like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Like, that's not even pronoun stuff. Like, that's not even, like, the pronoun conversation. That's just straight up shitting on a person. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's unacceptable. And that's unacceptable just on a straight, like, you are alive. Like, I wouldn't accept that if I was walking down the street and somebody was treating a dog that way. Right? Like, but what you walk down the street, you see somebody treating a trans person that way, and we're all supposed to just be like, oh, like, fuck that. Fuck that. It's brutal. Peer pressure shapes the world and power structures. Yeah. Yeah, comedians' main goal is to get paid. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Life is funny, especially the rough things, but there's always something funny. I think the 60s and 70s were funny, but funny because racism, bigotry, etc. were made fun of. The person wasn't the joke. Well, and I mean, comedy is also a form of catharsis, right? That it's the catharsis I think people are seeking. And the reason why, like, if you have a feeling or a thought in your head, and you know everybody else kind of does too, but it doesn't really get articulated. This is why artists are important, and comedians are part of that. But I feel like my art is the same thing, that what I am articulating is the feeling that everyone is having. And that's what makes me an artist, that I'm just kind of telling back to you something you already believe, but you haven't had the time or ability to formulate into something that you can see, like a painting or a comedy act or a song or something like that. So you don't have and so and really, really good art creates in the viewer or the consumer a catharsis moment, that there is an expelling of emotional energy, whether that be through laughter or whether that be through crying or whether that be through getting angry, right? Getting angry is a form of catharsis as well. And it is fundamentally about catharsis. It's about finding a way to expel that energy. Oh yeah, All in the Family, Archie Bunker would never be a new show now. Yeah, what's his name tried to do something like that. There was a fellow, come on, the Family Guy guy, the guy that made Family Guy. Anyway, the guy that made Family Guy, he tried to make a show that was about like an Archie Bunker style, and he was a cartoon character, so an Archie Bunker style character whose daughter ends up with like a Mexican immigrant. And this guy's job is border security on the American-Mexican border. Didn't last. Not very long. But you could see while the show was going on that that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to make it an Archie Bunker kind of situation so that they could explore these issues and explore like the border wall and explore all that kind of stuff. But people aren't there, man. And people need to air this shit out. Like, there's a lot of shit that needs to get aired out. Like, and it is gonna be like an airing out. It's a, oh yeah, the Boondocks. Yeah, that was a great show, dude. And they got away with a lot because those guys were kids, right? That was the real linchpin of that piece. That, if you guys don't know, the Boondocks was a cartoon, started as a comic book, became a cartoon that was about black issues, and like the most hardline, like thuggish things were always said by the youngest kid. Just like, and because he was like a 10-year-old kid saying this shit, he got away with a lot more than I think others would have gotten away with. As I understand, the indigenous people seem to have a better grasp of trans people, yet we could learn from it. Well, the whole idea of the two spirits people, like that was also very helpful for me when I heard about how indigenous people, I think it was an indigenous speaker that I listened to, was talking about trans people and trans rights and how indigenous people see them. The idea that they have within them two spirits. And that kind of duality of things was very helpful. It's very helpful to find ways to articulate this stuff and to struggle with these ideas and to come to a place of normalcy is really what it's about. It's just about normalcy. Oh yeah, and the Jeffersons, for sure. All of those shows, dude. Like, the only show in that era that would actually play today would be something like The Cosby Show. But that doesn't play for obvious reasons. Yeah, loved how George was the racist. Yeah. Well, and there was something kind of nice and refreshing. I shouldn't say nice, but just like today's media kind of just plays this denial card. Like they pretend as though people are not racist. Like none of these superheroes, like nobody in our media whatsoever is like actually straight up a racist or like a bigot or any of that. It just doesn't exist in our media really. That and because we've attempted to like, and this is like a theory, right? Oh, if we just like eliminate it from the media, then that will reflect into the culture. But I worry that all it's done is that it's created a boiling pot. That all of those feelings and those racist ideas and the bigotry and all of that kind of stuff, it has no way to actually express itself. And so it's like a covered bubbling pot. Eventually it boils over. And, oh yeah, Welcome Back Kotter was great, dude. Welcome Back Kotter was so great. I haven't seen Welcome Back Kotter forever, man. You got to remember, I'm from like Manitoba, so there was like, we didn't get like new television. So we were in the 70s when I was growing up, for sure. We were in like the 70s and 80s growing up. Oh man, okay. That was a wild conversation to have, man. I was not expecting to talk about that today. I was not expecting to talk about that today at all. Oh man, what a day. What a crazy day. Yeah, what a crazy day. Lots to reflect on. It was a good day. It was a good day. And hopefully the next protest we have, we're actually going to do it at Doug Ford's house. That's what Isabella's saying. Fuck, what a baller. What a fucking baller, man. I've been trying to get a protest at Doug Ford's house since I started doing protest movements. That I was actually shocked to see how much resistance there was to the idea of going to Doug Ford's house. I thought for sure people were just going to be like, yeah, let's go to this fucking guy's house. Fuck this guy. But such is life. Such is life. You don't see life in poverty in media like Good Times. Everyone has money, even if their jobs wouldn't warrant it in real life. Yeah, the exclusion of poverty, like a show like Modern Family. Like I was very surprised that Modern Family was that popular, right? Like to me, Modern Family was fairly incoherent. I feel like it really was just sort of carrying through the like support for gay people, right? Because there was like the gay couple on the show who were lovely, right? Hilarious. But like that whole nuclear family that we were presented with, I'm just like, what is that? Like that doesn't seem to be real. And like the boomer kind of thing, like literally, like think about the nuclear family. Like she does not work. He works in real estate. And when the show was on air, we were in the middle of like a housing crash. And it just was invisible, just didn't exist whatsoever, right? Like it just seemed economically incoherent. Like The Simpsons are, right? Big reason why The Simpsons can't actually tell good stories anymore is because the family itself is incoherent. It doesn't make sense, right? What Homer has like a stable full-time job with benefits while being a literal idiot. And Marge doesn't work, and they've got at least 3 kids and a car. Like it's an incoherent lifestyle that doesn't exist any longer. Yeah, every gay couple is upper class, has an adopted kid, very safe, bourgeoisie. Exactly. Okay, guys, short cast today. I think I'm gonna call it though. Just remember, guys. And in the context of what we've been talking about today, this is actually more important to me. Each and every one of you is a divine being, standing around in divine energy. The billionaires spend hundreds of billions of dollars to have us forget it. We shouldn't let them. Good luck. We're going to need it.